Hey, Trojan family, what's going on? Welcome to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Instant reaction, raw, uncut, maybe unfiltered. Talking the game just ended minutes ago. Not live. Plan is to be live tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. with Madman, and we'll see if Tim can jump on. Hopefully we'll make that happen and get a lot of your thoughts and maybe take some calls and steal your comments and whatnot. But I just want to jump on here, give a quick reaction as USC drops their third game in a row in terms of this Notre Dame series, not on the season, but third year in a row, losing to Notre Dame by a final score of 34-24 in South Bend. Just a really unfortunate loss. USC had their chances. They had some really bad self-inflicted wounds, some questionable play calling at critical moments. Obviously, turnovers bit them. And then really, when it comes down to it, just got punched in the mouth. And, we've been talking about this team, the improved in, toughness. I've said before, I think the word soft is overused. I don't think this is a soft team, but they did get bullied overall in this game when you look at the running game specifically. And last week, they dispelled all that. They were able to run all over Michigan. They were able to stop Michigan's run. Kudos to them. I don't think that was a mirage. Michigan looked really good today in beating Washington, and they played their brand of football against Washington. But they weren't able to, USC was not able to replicate that in a tough game in South Bend. So a couple things we'll get into. We'll keep this kind of short. The season's not over. I know as with any loss, fans will take it very tough, want everyone fired. And, you lose to a rival now for the third time in a row. It feels a little bleak, but this wasn't a conference game. So USC still has everything in front of them in the conference. Things get a little harder now with 2 losses in the season, sitting at 5-2. But I think more so it's what this game maybe said about this team as a road team, right? Because now you get to go play Nebraska on the road next after the bye, which Nebraska lost today badly, or I guess it was Friday, I think technically, badly to Minnesota on the road. Teams just don't play good on the road in college football. And then they got to go up to Oregon and Eugene, and they get Iowa at home. Iowa ended up with a big win over Penn State today by 1 point. So, and UCLA won again. UCLA now winners of 3 straight and looking like a competent football team. So that game can have huge implications as the final game of the season in the intra-city rivalry with the Bruins. But that's further down the line. So this game just unfortunate. Quick, when you look at it defensively, I think that's where you have to start, right? Defensively, just no answer for the run game in Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. 306, or I think more than that because CJ Card -7 with some sacks. 315 or whatever, 300 plus rushing yards for Notre Dame. 228 for Jeremiah Love, 9.5 yard average, and 87 for Price, 6.7 yard average. They ran the ball 39 times between those 2 running backs. And it was more effective than a passing game. They didn't do anything through the air. CJ Carr finished with 136 yards passing, did have the 1 touchdown, and had that critical interception, which kept USC kind of in the game. But run defense just could not do anything. And it was similar to what we saw kind of against Illinois. Just, I don't think they got pushed around as much, but not real gap sound. I mean, really big gaping holes. Linebackers kind of going to wrong gap assignments. And so Love Love is the best back probably in the country, but he had such open running lanes. Anyone would have had a 150 plus yards in this game. So just a really poor run defense in this game, unfortunately. And, we saw some good improvement throughout the game here and there, but then late in the game again, gave up some big runs and just weren't able to stop it. So, I think that what we take away from this is still a lot of work to be done in the run defense. Now, obviously, tons of missed holding calls and but I'm not going to get into that. I probably tweeted enough of that during the game, and some of it's egregious and it's going to spring it is what it is. Like we can say all we want, like, oh, you can't blame penalties and the coaching staff shouldn't do that. But when the guy going to make the tackle is getting tackled himself, it's hard to make the tackle then. So there was plenty of that, but that's not what led to 300 yards rushing. Like that led to some of those plays, which is what makes it really frustrating. But overall, USC, you got to be able to break out of those. You got to have more gap integrity with other guys, more at the point of attack, just more players there, so you're not in one-on-one battles. That was the biggest issue in the run game, is these running backs were being met by one player many times. And so regardless if it's a hold or not, that one player has to make a Herculean effort against these great running backs. Whereas when you watch on the other side and USC trying to run the football, it's like there was 7 Notre Dame players there every single time, just gang tackling. So the lack of kind of hats on the ball is really what hurt USC in this run game overall. Again, we saw a few drives where that did look improved, but that I think was the biggest issue in this. And, I'll go back and look more and kind of and see schematically maybe what went wrong. We saw them still, I think the interesting thing with this scheme in this game is we still saw a lot more, nickel package versus when they last week against Michigan did a lot more 4-3 base with 3 backers and kind of just used Gentry as that nickel when necessary. And this one, we saw a lot more of Christian Pierce back at safety and moving Kamari Ramsey over nickel, not the entire time, but we saw a lot more of that than we did against Michigan, just based on what I was seeing. I'll have to look back at the actual numbers and snap counts just to see if that's accurate. That's what it seemed like to me, but a lot lighter boxes, which is surprising considering how well they're running out. Now they had to do it a little bit more. And we talked about this in the previous show because Notre Dame and CJ Carr has just been a better passing team. So they had that duality that Michigan really didn't have, but I don't think they had it as much as say like Luke Altmaier, some of the other quarterbacks. And I think they proved that. I mean, CJ Carr, I don't think CJ Carr looked like a top quarterback at all in this game. So you really would have liked to have seen maybe a little more sell out to stopping this run. And that's, I think, when they did have some success is when they had those 3 backer sets and Jaden Walker out there with Stevens and Gentry. So, we'll have to look back on the film and that and see, but that's really what it came down on defense, is just not being able to stop this run. I mean, plenty of gash runs, a 63-yard run for Love, a 32-yard run for Price, multiple 10+ yard running plays. And so that was the, really a dagger on defenses there, is just, it still held them to 27 points. So not like they went for 40, because obviously they had the kick return touchdown and they had some short fields to deal with, but still need to be better against the run, regardless if you're on the road, regardless if it's a rivalry game, regardless if they're playing the best backs in the country. Like, you got to be better than that. I'm not saying they weren't going to shut them down. I don't think that was under question. We knew that this is a really good football team. This is a really good running football team. And this is arguably the best running back tandem in the country. But 300 yards is egregious. Like, if they got like 210, you might live with that. 300, egregious. Offensively, they were forced to become one-dimensional. I thought the offensive line throughout the course of the game, obviously in that last drive, because everyone knew it was coming, the offensive line I thought did pretty well. No Elijah Page again. He did dress, but it was kind of under drastic measures, and now he gets the bye to come back before Nebraska. So with the unit that they had, and I thought the offensive line overall held up good in pass pro, could not get much going in the run game, obviously. And, clearly you miss Wayman Jordan in this game. I think with the talent and skill level that Wayman Jordan has, he would have been able to make some guys miss, maybe break and extend a few more of those runs, but there wasn't much there. It wasn't like King Miller was just bad. I mean, there was not much there. As I mentioned, Notre Dame just had hats on the ball all night long in the running game. And he still finished, 18 for 70, a 3.9 yard average. So not terrible. But they only finished with 68 yards total running. Now, obviously, a lot of that is on losses. Harry Dalton, -2. Jaden Malva with the 2 sacks, -9. Makai Lemon, minus 13, which we'll get to that play call in a minute. So the two running backs, really, Miller and Jackson, did finish with 92 yards. So almost got to 100. Not good enough, but it wasn't like that was the absolute downfall. Jaden Mayava, overall, I thought played well. I know he finished with 2 interceptions. One of them was a brutal one when they were kind of trying to just down by 3, trying to make a comeback and just completely underthrew the guy. I don't know if he saw something, if he wasn't able to step into it, if maybe the wetness and the rain maybe caused a slip. I don't know, but just not a good throw. The decision was fine, actually. He had lane if he let him. So it wasn't like an egregious decision like we've seen in the past. It was just an unfortunate athletic or an non-athletic throw, if you will, which he usually makes those and fits those tight windows. So just an underthrown ball. But he wasn't the reason they lost this game. I mean, finished with 328 total yards. Did have the 2 touchdowns, 2 beautiful touchdowns. The opening touchdown drive, which was a phenomenal drive in terms of play calling and execution with the Lake McCree touchdown. And then that beautiful 59-yard dime to Jacoby Lane for that touchdown that put them ahead at the time and gave them all the momentum until you give up a kick return touchdown immediately following. So, I thought Mayava played good. Obviously, the mistakes are brutal. The last one, it is what it is. They weren't coming back at that point anyway. But that one was brutal when they were trying to kind of come back from a 3-point deficit and then ended up giving them the ball back, giving them the momentum back again. So, unfortunate. Lane, couple drops, did have a good game, 111 yards and the touchdown. So made up for it. But, some of those drops were unfortunate, obviously, and cost his team a little bit, especially that one that would have been a touchdown that they ended up having to settling for a field goal. And, Lemon, I thought overall played well. Credit Notre Dame, their game plan to kind of take him out of things. Only was able to get 4 receptions, 76 yards. So, I mean, yeah, give Coach Freeman and Notre Dame, the defensive staff, a ton of credit and these players for what they were able to do in really slowing down Mekhi Lemon in a huge way in this game. So, but I thought USC had a chance, even getting bullied in the trenches, even without much of a running game, even without being able to stop Notre Dame's run game. They had their opportunities, and those self-inflicted wounds of those, the 2 interceptions, or we'll just call it the 1, since the 1 came at the end of the game, but at a critical time, with the giving up a return for a touchdown, some drops, like those things stack up, and they cost them in this one. So hats off to Notre Dame. Last thing I'll say, obviously Lincoln Riley's going to get crucified for some of those play calling, and he's the head coach, and they were some rough play calls. I thought overall, not one of his better games play calling after, masterful against Michigan, masterful in some of these early games. This I thought was not one of his better ones overall, just because, it's stacked up against you, right? You're down your top 2 running backs going up against a really good run defense. You couldn't get the run game going, so you had to rely on the pass. And then the weather came in, and, it's just going to be harder to pass in those kind of conditions. So they were up against it in that. But I mean, a trick play with Mekhi Lemon in that situation, Mekhi Lemon's a veteran. He's a great player. Like, he'll tell you he knew he should have just, take the loss, right? You take the loss, live it, fight another day, still tries to throw it, ends up with the critical fumble that, gives Notre Dame the ball back. And so that was a brutal one. I thought was it the next drive? And that's all blended together, but a few what they have 2 4th down attempts, one early in the game. Try to look here at my stat pack if I can find it, but I think they had multiple 4th down attempts, both non-converted, and both I did not love the play calls on either of those. I know that and I've talked about it a lot this season, the play of, putting the tight end in motion and then have him in motion, still keep running through the route. Mayava rolls out, and they've been able to hit it so much this season, which it converts every single time. I mean, you only need a yard. It converts, usually 10 plus yards. They've converted on the goal line situations. So the play has been so dialed in. But in this situation, knowing Notre Dame plays man coverage, so they're going to have a guy right there. I know the run game hadn't been super consistent, but at that late stage in the game, with the weather the way it was, with the momentum the way it was. I would have loved to have kind of seen, just either a different kind of pass play or just a QB sneak with Jaden Maava, or just let Brian Jackson try to just, use his strength and get that 1 yard. And if you don't, sometimes you just say, all right, we got beat in the trenches on that play. We move on. But that play call at that scenario, it was tough in that 4th and 1, and then just gave them all the momentum back. And they, Notre Dame read it perfectly. They did their homework. They watched their film. That play had worked so well for SC all season long in that type of situation, and they sniffed it out completely. So hats off to them. So that overall, an okay play called game by Lincoln Riley, but that 4th down call and then that Mekhi Lemon kind of trick play in the rain, just not necessary after just completing a big play to Mekhi Lemon. So there's some of that where you're trying to plan that momentum. Like you just had this big play to Mekhi, plan that momentum, get another big play. Like you've really taken the air out of the stadium. So there's a side that I get, but in that situation with that weather on the road, I don't love it. And obviously it worked out horribly. It did not work out well. So tough loss, 10-point loss, no way to spin it. USC had their chances, self-inflicted wounds, and, the trench play and not able to stop the run. That's what it comes down to. So this team gets a bye now, their final bye of the season before they complete this final stretch. The season is not over. So I know fans, this is tough. I know everyone's going to go to bed angry. I know everyone's going to want everyone fired. But this was a good football game. It was an entertaining game, as frustrating as it was. USC has all the fight. They're a no-quit team, so they got everything in front of them still. I mean, they go win out 10-2. They have a shot at the playoff. Even if they drop one more and finish 9-3, that is I think we would all say that was a pretty good outcome for this season. Now, right now, it doesn't feel like it, but let's see how this team responds. And obviously, as a program, and I'll end it here, you have to get to a point where you can win these big road games. You have to. At least 1 or 2 of them a season. And they'll have another chance to do that, obviously, in 2 weeks at Nebraska and in, a month at Oregon. So they've got 2 more opportunities to prove they can actually win a big game on the road, because you've got to do it. You have to do it. They have 1 road game win right now against Purdue. They have a big home win against Michigan, but their last 2 chances they had for big road wins, they lost both of them, Illinois and now Notre Dame. So you've got to start proving that you can win these big games on the road. And until they do, those questions will always be there with Lincoln Riley and with this team. So they've got opportunities to still capitalize and improve, and we'll see what happens. But tough loss in South Bend. We'll be back tomorrow with more coverage and kind of let the dust settle, and then we'll talk tomorrow and all throughout the week as USC enters a bye. They go into a bye again with a bad taste in their mouth. So they'll have every opportunity to have a good week of preparation and really come out, roaring against Nebraska. So thanks everyone. Appreciate this. Has been a fun week, rivalry week. I know it wasn't the outcome we all wanted, but hey, it was still a blast. And, we'll continue to fight on. So thank you as always. This is the USC LAFB show. I'm Ryan Dyrud. As always, fight on.